The fall. The stars around Zereth were nothing but tiny points of light. The endless void of space stretched out before her, dark and silent. Her spaceship, once her pride, was now nothing more than a broken piece of metal floating in the cold silence. Zereth's breath came in shallow gasps through her helmet. She couldn't remember how long it had been since the crash. Hours, days, maybe longer. Her people, her crew, everyone was gone. There was nothing left of her world but the wreckage of the ship and the terrifying vastness of space. She was alone. She had tried everything to contact anyone at all. But the signals were dead. Her equipment, damaged in the crash, only gave static. The air in her suit was running out. The oxygen was slowly fading. Soon, she would fall into darkness. A voice whispered in the back of her mind, "Let go. It's easier this way." She closed her eyes, trying to block out the thought. The voice was cold, empty, just like the space around her. But Zereth fought against it. She had always been strong. Her people were survivors. She was a survivor. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't stop the sense of hopelessness creeping in. There was no escape from this place. She was just another forgotten soul lost in space. Then suddenly, a flicker on her screen. Her eyes snapped open. A tiny blip appeared on her radar. Something is out there. Her heart raced. Could it be another ship? She didn't dare believe it. It was too good to be true. But the blip moved closer, slowly but steadily. She reached for the controls, her hands shaking. She couldn't be sure what it was, but it was the only chance she had. She sent out a weak distress signal, barely enough to reach anything. But maybe, just maybe, it would work. She waited. The seconds dragged on. Her chest tightened as the minutes passed. Was it getting closer? Or was it just a false hope? A crackling sound filled her helmet. A voice. A human voice. "Hello." The voice was calm, deep. It sounded so distant at first. "This is Captain Leo Grant. I'm here to help. Don't give up. We'll get you out of there." Zereth's heart skipped a beat. A human. Her people had always spoken about humans in whispers, stories filled with fear and distrust. They were violent, dangerous. But was this real? Was this human really reaching out to her? Or was her mind playing tricks on her, the darkness slowly taking over? No, no, Zereth whispered to herself. She couldn't trust this. She had no reason to trust anyone, especially a human. Her people had been betrayed by other races, by humans. She couldn't let herself fall into the trap of false hope. And yet, she couldn't deny it. The voice was real. The signal was real. "Stay calm," the human voice continued. "I've locked onto your position. Hold on, I'm coming for you." The ship moved closer, slowly, like a giant shadow cutting through the stars. Zereth watched it approach with wide eyes, torn between fear and curiosity. Was this a trap? Was she about to be captured? But then, something inside her made her take a chance. She couldn't just die out here, alone. She had to try. She had to reach out for help. It was the only thing she could do. Her fingers hovered over the controls, her heart pounding in her chest. The ship was closer now. She could see its shape, a dark outline against the stars. There was a human ship, real and alive, coming to her. The voice spoke again, this time with more urgency. "Zereth, I'm almost there. You need to activate your thrusters, just a little. We can dock, but you need to move." Her hand shook as she reached for the thrusters. They fired with a soft hum, just enough to nudge her closer to the human ship. She didn't know why she was doing it. She didn't know if she was making a huge mistake. But in that moment, the thought of dying alone in space was far worse than taking a chance. The human ship loomed closer, a sleek, dark vessel with lights blinking around its edges. It was unlike any ship Zereth had ever seen. The technology was foreign to her, strange, yet somehow reassuring. She felt like she was falling into the darkness, and yet this ship, this human, was pulling her back. The docking process was slow, but steady, a hiss of air, a soft clang as their ships connected. Zareth barely noticed the movement of her hands as she undid the hatch and pushed the door open. The smell of air, fresh and clean, hit her like a wave. She stepped forward, almost stumbling, as she made her way toward the opening. And then she saw him, a human, standing at the doorway of the ship, his eyes fixed on her, Captain Leo Grant. He was tall, with dark brown hair and a calm expression. His eyes, though, told a different story. They were full of pain and loss, but also determination. "You're safe now," he said, his voice steady. Zareth stood frozen for a moment. The darkness that had surrounded her now seemed a little less cold, a little less endless. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Why are you helping me?" Leo's eyes softened, because not everyone in this galaxy is out to destroy others. Sometimes, people just need a little help. Zareth didn't know what to say. She couldn't understand him. She couldn't understand why he would risk his life for hers. But in that moment, she realized something. Maybe, just maybe, this human wasn't like the others. Maybe he wasn't the enemy after all. The human. Zareth's hands still trembled as she stepped inside the human ship. The metal beneath her feet felt warm, like it had a pulse of its own, a stark contrast to the cold emptiness of space she had just left behind. It was everything she had heard about humans. And more. Their ships were sleek, efficient, almost organic in their design. There were no loud, clunky engines or bright, noisy lights like her people's ships. This one was quiet, smooth, almost alive. She glanced at Leo as he closed the hatch behind her. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with rugged features that spoke of a life lived on the edge of danger. His uniform, simple and worn, gave no hint of rank or status. Yet there was something about him that commanded attention, something not immediately obvious, but undeniable. His eyes, dark and serious, watched her with a kind of intensity that made her uneasy. "Are you really going to help me?" Zareth asked, her voice uncertain. The words felt strange on her tongue. She had never asked for help from anyone, let alone a human. In the stories told by her people, humans were nothing but warriors, conquerors, and enemies. But this didn't feel like an enemy. Not yet. Leo met her gaze without hesitation. "I'm not here to harm you," he said simply, his voice low but steady. There was a calmness to it that confused her. How could someone who had no idea what she had been through sound so calm, so sure? "I don't know if I can trust you," Zareth muttered, her eyes drifting toward the small control panel on the wall. It seemed so different from the systems she knew, yet somehow more intuitive. It made her uneasy. She didn't know why, but everything about this ship felt too easy, too smooth. Leo's face softened, and he stepped closer. "You don't have to trust me right now. I don't expect that. I just need you to understand one thing. I'm not like the others. I'm not here for anything more than to help. Whatever your people have told you, whatever you've heard about humans, it's not the whole story." Zareth stiffened. The others, the enemy she had always been warned about. She was sure he meant the same human warriors who had destroyed her people's homeworld. The same ones who had fought against them in battle after battle. Could he really be different? Her eyes narrowed, studying him carefully. Leo's face didn't show any hint of the fear or anger that had defined every other human she had encountered in her past. He wasn't even nervous, not in the way a soldier would be, not in the way she'd expected. Instead, he looked tired. There was something more in his gaze, something deeper than the surface-level calm he wore. It was the kind of tiredness that comes from years of carrying the weight of something bigger than yourself. She didn't understand it. "What's your story, Leo?" Zareth asked, her voice soft but direct. She needed to know. She needed to understand why he was different from all the others. Why had he saved her? Why was he so calm? Leo's lips tightened for a moment, and for the first time, he seemed to hesitate. "That's a long story," he said, his voice carrying a hint of sadness. "A story I didn't think I'd be telling anyone. But you deserve to know, I guess." Zirith didn't say anything. She simply waited. There was something in her gut telling her this was important. This was the key. Leo sighed, running a hand through his messy hair. "I was a soldier, part of a fleet. The kind of soldiers who went to war without asking why. We were the ones sent to clean up messes, to keep the peace." He scoffed, the bitterness in his tone undeniable. "But the truth is, we didn't keep peace. We fought wars, conquered planets, destroyed whole civilizations in the name of a greater good that nobody really understood. It was all for power, for control." Zirith listened intently. She couldn't help herself. This was a story she hadn't expected to hear from a human. Soldiers, conquerors, they didn't talk like this. Leo continued, "I got tired of it. Tired of the bloodshed, the lies. I saw things, terrible things, that I could never undo. I couldn't keep being part of it, so I left. I deserted my post, took what I could, and ran." Zirith's brow furrowed. "You left your people, your army." Leo nodded. "I didn't have a choice. The things I'd seen, the choices I'd been forced to make, they haunted me. I couldn't keep living that way. So I stole something, a piece of technology that could change everything. It's dangerous, it's unstable, but it could fix a lot of what's been broken in this galaxy." Zirith's heart beat faster. "What is it? What did you steal?" Leo's eyes grew cold for a moment. "Something called the Seed. It's a piece of technology that can reshape planets. It can heal or destroy. It can rebuild civilizations or wipe them off the map. I took it because I thought it could be used for good, but the people I betrayed, they'll stop at nothing to get it back. And that's why you're here, Zirith. Because they'll come for you too, as soon as they know you were with me." Zirith's mind was spinning. The Seed. That was the object she had seen earlier. The object she had no idea could do so much. Could this human truly be someone different? Could he really want to change things for the better? She didn't know. But one thing was certain. Leo's past wasn't clean. He wasn't a hero, and he wasn't a villain. He was someone who had been broken by the system, someone who was trying to fix the damage in whatever way he could. He wasn't asking for redemption. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He was simply asking for a chance to make things right. And for the first time since her people had been wiped out, Zirith wasn't sure if she was still falling into darkness, or if just maybe she was starting to see a way out. The secret. Zirith sat silently in the dim light of the ship's control room, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of a console. The soft hum of the ship's engines was the only sound, a constant reminder that they were no longer alone in space. Leo had said they were safe for now, but Zirith knew better than to believe everything a stranger told her, especially a human stranger who claimed to be running from his own kind. She glanced at Leo, who was sitting across from her, staring at a holographic map of the galaxy that floated above the table between them. His expression was unreadable, but the tension in his posture was clear. He was worried. And Zirith couldn't decide whether that made her feel better or worse. "Why did you bring me here?" she finally asked, her voice breaking the silence. She needed answers. She had to understand why she had trusted him, why she was still here, hiding in this strange human ship, millions of miles away from her own people's homeworld. Leo didn't look up right away. His eyes seemed distant, lost in thought. But after a long pause, he spoke. "You're not just anyone, Zirith. Your people, the Zrathians, have something I need." Zirith's heart skipped. The Zrathians. Her people. Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't know how to react. What could he possibly need from her people? "I don't understand," Zirith said, trying to keep her voice steady. "What do you mean, something I need? What is it?" Leo finally met her eyes, and for the first time, there was no trace of the calm, cool soldier she had seen earlier. His eyes were intense, almost pleading. It was as if, for the briefest moment, the weight of everything he had been through was too much for him to hide. The seed. It's a part of something much bigger, Leo said, his voice low. It's a key to something ancient, something older than both our people combined. And your people, the Zrathians, they were the guardians. For centuries, they've kept it hidden, kept it safe. Zirith felt a shiver run down her spine. She had heard legends, ancient myths from her elders, about the guardians of the seed. But they were just that, legends, myths. Her people had never spoken about it openly. Not in recent times. It was a history locked away, lost to the past. You're saying my people were guarding this thing? Zirith whispered. Her mind raced. The seed wasn't just some random piece of technology. It was something far more dangerous. And Leo was after it. Leo's hands tightened around the table, his knuckles white. Yes, and now they're all gone. Your people were destroyed by a war they never wanted. The seed was taken, but not by me. The people who destroyed your world, your entire race, they took it, not knowing what it truly was. They thought they could use it as a weapon. Zirith's chest tightened as a wave of grief hit her. The war, the destruction, the endless nightmares that had haunted her since her ship had crashed. Her people, all gone. She was the last of them, the last Zrathian. And now, Leo was telling her that the war wasn't just about power or control. It was about something far greater, something she had no idea how to comprehend. But that's not why I'm here, Leo said, his voice growing more urgent. I didn't come for revenge. I came to stop them from using the seed. Because if they do, it will be the end of everything. Your people knew it. That's why they kept it hidden. That's why they never told anyone about it. Zirith blinked, trying to process the magnitude of what he was saying. The end of everything. The seed wasn't just some tool. It was a force that could reshape the very fabric of the galaxy. It could destroy everything, or it could rebuild it. But how could Leo, a human, understand what her people had sacrificed to protect it? How could he be the one to stop it? What makes you think you can stop them? Zirith asked, her voice sharp. You're just one person. And the seed, it's not something anyone can control. It's too powerful. Leo's gaze softened, and for a moment, the hardness in his eyes seemed to fade. He leaned forward, his hands clasped together in front of him. I don't have all the answers. But I know what it can do, Zirith. I've seen it firsthand. I've watched civilizations burn. I've seen the way people use it to destroy, to crush others under the weight of power. But I also know it doesn't have to be like that. Zirith was silent for a long time. The weight of his words pressed down on her, suffocating her. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that there was a way to use the seed for something good. But how could she? How could she trust a human, a stranger, with something so powerful? Something that had been kept safe for generations by her people. I don't know if I can help you, she said quietly, her voice filled with doubt. I don't know what I can do. The seed, it's beyond me. It's beyond anyone. Leo didn't flinch. Instead, he gave her a small, reassuring smile, though it was tinged with sadness. You're wrong. It's not beyond anyone. It's just about the choices we make. And you, Zirith, you're the only one who can make the right one. Zirith stared at him, unsure of what to say. Was he right? Was she truly the key to stopping everything from falling apart? Her heart raced. The future of the galaxy, the fate of everything she had ever known, rested in her hands. She had never felt so small, so powerless. And yet, deep down, she couldn't ignore the pull of something greater. The seed could either destroy them all or save them. But what if Leo was wrong? What if the seed was too dangerous, too unpredictable to control? As Zirith's mind swirled with doubts and fears, the ship suddenly jolted, throwing her off balance. The lights flickered, and an alarm blared through the control room. Leo's face turned pale. "They found us," he whispered. "The choice." The ship shuddered violently as Zereth was thrown forward, her body slamming into the metal floor. The emergency lights flickered, casting an eerie glow over the control room. The loud alarm continued to blare, echoing through the ship, drowning out all other sounds. It was chaos. Terrifying chaos. Zereth pushed herself up, her heart pounding in her chest. Her breath came in short gasps. What was happening? She could feel the fear coursing through her veins. They had been discovered. The people Leo had been running from. They had found them. "Leo," she shouted, her voice barely cutting through the noise. She looked around frantically, but the human was nowhere to be seen. Then she heard his voice, calm as ever, coming from the ship's intercom system. "Zereth, I need you to listen. We've been tracked. The Vanguard. They've activated the beacon on the seed. They know exactly where we are. We don't have much time." Zereth's hands trembled as she grabbed onto the nearest console, trying to steady herself. Her mind raced, but the only thought that kept repeating in her head was, "This is it. This is the end." "The Vanguard. What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice shaking. Leo's voice was tight with urgency. "The Vanguard is the elite force sent to retrieve the seed. They were the ones who wiped out your people. They don't care who gets in their way. And if they have the seed, they'll use it to control everything." Zereth swallowed hard. Her people. The memories of her homeworld, of her family, flashed before her eyes. They had fought for peace, fought to protect the galaxy from chaos. And now, their worst enemy was knocking at her door. "What do we do?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Her whole body felt like it was shaking from the inside out. Leo's voice was steady, but there was an edge of desperation beneath it. "We fight. There's no other choice. They'll stop at nothing to take the seed from us. If they get it, everything is over. But there's something you need to understand, Zereth. This." He paused, his tone turning somber. "This isn't just about survival. It's about the future of everything. If the Vanguard succeeds, they'll reshape the galaxy in their image. We'll all become pawns in their game. And the seed will be their weapon." Zereth's stomach churned. She had heard stories of powerful organizations that bent entire galaxies to their will. But this was different. The seed wasn't just a weapon. It was something more, something far more dangerous. She closed her eyes, trying to make sense of everything. In her mind, the decision seemed so clear. Her people had sacrificed everything to protect the seed. It had been hidden for centuries, kept from those who would use it for evil. She couldn't let it fall into the hands of the Vanguard. But she also couldn't ignore the truth that gnawed at her heart. She was just one person. She wasn't trained for battle. She had never faced anything like this before. But then she remembered Leo's face. The calmness, the sadness, the determination. He wasn't just running from his past anymore. He was trying to make things right. He had chosen to fight. And now she had to decide whether she would stand by his side. Zereth clenched her fists. She had no choice. There was no turning back now. Suddenly, the intercom crackled again. "Zereth, we don't have much time. They're boarding the ship. You need to get to the escape pods. I'll hold them off." Zereth's heart skipped a beat. "What? No. Leo, I'm not leaving you." There was a brief silence on the other end before Leo's voice responded, softer this time. "You don't have a choice. If I go down, you're the only one left to stop them. You have to make it out of here. You have to protect the seed." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. She didn't want to leave him. She couldn't. Leo had saved her. He had risked everything to pull her from the darkness of space. And now, when they were so close to stopping the Vanguard, he was asking her to run. But as the sound of distant explosions echoed through the ship's hull, Zereth knew he was right. The Vanguard wasn't interested in mercy. If they wanted the seed, they would do anything to get it. She couldn't be selfish. She couldn't let her fear control her. Zirith took a deep breath and stood, her legs shaking, but her resolve hardening. She had to make the choice. She had to choose to fight, to do what was necessary. She couldn't let Leo's sacrifice be in vain. "Where do I go?" she asked, her voice firm, though her heart was still pounding in her chest. Leo's voice was steady once again. "Head to the engine room. It's the only place where we can create a diversion. I'll hold them off long enough to buy you time. But you need to move fast." Zirith nodded, her mind already racing ahead to the task at hand. She didn't know what the future held, but she couldn't let fear control her anymore. She couldn't run from her destiny. She had already lost too much, and now she had the chance to save what remained. She turned and ran down the narrow hallway, her steps echoing in the silence of the ship. Behind her, she could hear the sounds of weapons being drawn, the heavy footsteps of the vanguard soldiers. They were close. She was running out of time. As she reached the engine room, her fingers flew over the control panel, her heart racing. There was no time for hesitation. The lives of everyone in the galaxy depended on her now. The engines powered up with a deep rumble as she activated the emergency sequence. The ship would break apart if she did this, but it was the only way to create enough of a diversion to escape. She could already feel the vibration beneath her feet. The countdown had begun. Behind her, the door to the engine room slammed open. Zirith turned just as the vanguard soldiers burst in, their weapons raised. One of them stepped forward, his voice dripping with cold malice. "You're too late, Zrathian. The seed belongs to us now." Zirith's breath caught in her throat. This was it, the final moment. She had no more time to waste. She turned and ran, leaving the soldiers behind as the engine room shook violently. The betrayal. The ship was falling apart. Zirith could feel the vibrations beneath her feet as she sprinted through the narrow corridors, her heart hammering in her chest. The sounds of explosions and screeching metal echoed through the halls, and she could hear the distant, frantic shouts of the vanguard soldiers closing in behind her. Her hands were slick with sweat as she gripped the edge of the ship's walls to steady herself. Time was slipping away faster than she could handle. The ship's core was in chaos. The emergency lights blinked on and off as if the very heartbeat of the vessel was faltering. The detonation sequence had already begun. She had set it in motion, but now there was no turning back. The engines were going to blow. The ship was going to be destroyed. She had just enough time to escape, if she could make it to the pod bay. But in the back of her mind, a gnawing doubt had started to eat away at her. Was it the right choice? Zirith couldn't shake the thought. Leo's last words kept echoing in her mind. "You're the only one left to stop them. You have to protect the seed." But why hadn't he told her everything? Why hadn't he explained why he hadn't just used the seed himself to destroy the vanguard? Why had he sacrificed so much, risked everything, just to send her away? Zirith gritted her teeth, forcing the thoughts out of her mind. There was no time to question it. There was only time to act. As she neared the pod bay, she heard the soft hiss of the automatic doors opening. She slowed to a stop just outside the room, her breath ragged and heavy in her chest. This was it. There was no turning back now. She had done what Leo asked her to do, even though a part of her didn't understand it. She had activated the detonation sequence. She had created the distraction. And now she had to escape, before it was too late. But as she stepped into the pod bay, her eyes widened in shock. There, standing in the middle of the room, was Leo. His eyes were wide with panic, his face pale, and his hands were raised in surrender. Behind him, a few of the vanguard soldiers had gathered, their weapons aimed directly at him. Zirith's stomach twisted. What is he doing here? "Leo," she shouted, stepping forward, her voice filled with a mix of disbelief and anger. What? What is this? You." Leo's eyes snapped to hers, and for a brief moment, something flickered in his gaze. Was it guilt? Regret? "Zirith." His voice was strained, barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry. I never wanted you to find out this way. But There's something I need to explain. Something I didn't have time to tell you." Zirith's hands curled into fists, a surge of anger washing over her. "You lied to me. You sent me into danger, told me to leave, and now you're working with them." She shook her head in disbelief. "I trusted you, Leo. I thought you were different. I thought you cared about what happened to me, to my people." Leo took a step toward her, but the vanguard soldiers immediately leveled their weapons at him. One of them, a tall, armored figure, stepped forward, speaking in a low, cold voice. "Don't make it worse for yourself, Captain. Step aside. You've been compromised. We need this Rathian alive." Zirith's pulse raced, her mind spinning. She couldn't understand. Why was Leo standing with them? Why had he betrayed her like this? "I didn't betray you, Zirith," Leo said quickly, his voice full of tension. "I never meant for you to get involved in this. The truth is, I'm not the man you think I am. I wasn't just a soldier who deserted his post. I was part of something much bigger. The seed, it's not just a weapon. It's a key to something much darker than you can imagine." Zirith's breath hitched. "A key to what?" "To destruction." Leo nodded slowly, his face pale and haunted. "Yes, but not just destruction. The seed, when fully activated, can control the fabric of life itself. It can bend entire worlds, entire civilizations, to the will of whoever holds it. And the Vanguard, they'd been trying to use it for years." Zirith's hand shook. She stepped back, her mind reeling. She had only just begun to understand the full extent of the seed's power, but now she realized the stakes were far higher than she had ever imagined. This wasn't just a battle for survival, it was a battle for the future of the galaxy itself. And Leo, who had saved her, who had stood by her side, was somehow involved in all of this. "Then why are you here?" she demanded, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and confusion. "Why are you standing with them? Why didn't you just tell me?" Leo's eyes fell to the floor, his shoulders slumping. "I didn't want to. I couldn't bring myself to tell you everything. I thought I could use the seed to stop them, to stop the Vanguard. But I was wrong." He met her gaze, his eyes filled with regret. "I've been running from my past for so long, Zirith, and now I realize I never really had control of it. The seed, it was never meant for anyone to control. It's too powerful, too dangerous." The Vanguard soldier stepped forward, raising his gun. "Enough talk. The seed is ours. You've both been compromised, and now you'll help us retrieve it." Zirith's heart pounded in her chest as she watched Leo, his back now against the wall, surrounded by the enemy. Everything she had been through, every decision she had made, had led her to this moment, and yet she still didn't know if she could trust him. Could Leo still be the person who saved her from the darkness of space, or had she been wrong about him all along? Leo looked at her one final time, his voice filled with urgency. "Zirith, don't let them use it. You're the only one who can stop them now." Her eyes burned with unshed tears. She had a choice to make, a choice that could change the galaxy forever. She could escape, she could leave Leo behind and save herself, or she could fight, stand by him, and try to stop the Vanguard from taking the seed. "But if I fight, will I be betraying my people, or will I finally be doing what they died for?" The decision wasn't easy. There was no turning back. Zirith clenched her fists, her resolve hardening. Without another word, she grabbed the nearest weapon and turned to face the Vanguard soldiers. This was her choice, and she would see it through to the end. The escape. The ship shook violently as explosions ripped through its structure. The deafening sound of metal grinding against metal reverberated through the corridors, and the lights flickered, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance on the walls. Zirith's breath came in sharp, shallow gasps as she crouched behind a nearby console, her heart racing, her mind spinning. The Vanguard soldiers were closing in. She could hear their heavy footsteps, the rhythmic thud of their boots echoing through the ship as they searched for her. Her hand gripped the weapon tightly, knuckles white, as she tried to steady her breath. The room felt too small, too confining. She had no plan, no strategy, just the desperate need to escape. And then there was Leo. He had betrayed her, or maybe it wasn't betrayal. She didn't know anymore. But he had told her the truth. The seed wasn't just a weapon, and it was far more dangerous than anyone had realized. Yet even as the vanguard surrounded him, he hadn't given up. He still believed there was a chance to stop them. Zareth wasn't sure if she could trust him, but she knew one thing for sure. She couldn't do this alone. Her gaze drifted to the control panel ahead of her, her eyes scanning the flickering redouts. The countdown had begun, and the ship was rapidly losing power. The core was unstable. The detonation was set, and the ship would explode within minutes. But she couldn't leave Leo behind. Not now. Not when she knew he was still out there, fighting for a cause she wasn't sure she fully understood. I can't just run. Her thoughts were a whirlwind of doubt, fear, and confusion. She had already lost everything. Her people, her home, her purpose. Was she really going to leave the only person who had tried to help her? The only human who hadn't treated her like an enemy? But at the same time, she could feel the weight of her decision pressing down on her. The vanguard wouldn't stop. If she didn't act quickly, the seed would fall into their hands. And if that happened, it wouldn't just be the end of her people, it would be the end of everything. Zareth clenched her jaw, forcing herself to focus. She couldn't keep second-guessing herself. She had a choice to make, and it was now or never. There was a loud crash as the doors to the control room burst open. She spun around, raising her weapon just in time to see a group of vanguard soldiers rush in, their weapons drawn. Their eyes locked onto her immediately. One of them, a tall, imposing figure clad in dark armor, stepped forward, a sinister grin spreading across his face. "There you are," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "Thought you could escape." Zareth's fingers tightened around the weapon. She didn't have much ammo, but that didn't matter. She had to make her stand. The soldier raised his hand, signaling his team to advance. "You're not going anywhere, Zrathian. The seed is ours, and you will hand it over." Zareth's eyes narrowed. She couldn't just hand it over. She wouldn't. She remembered the look on Leo's face, the way he had tried to protect her, the way he had sacrificed everything to keep the seed out of their hands. She wasn't going to let that be in vain. "I don't think so," she said, her voice steady but cold. Without another word, she darted forward, firing her weapon. The blast hit the soldier in the chest, sending him stumbling back. He grunted in pain, but he wasn't down. Not yet. The remaining soldiers raised their guns, and Zareth dove behind the nearest piece of cover, narrowly avoiding a hail of bullets. The force of the impact shook the walls, and she could feel the heat of the energy blasts just inches from her skin. The vanguard was closing in, and they were relentless. She had to get to Leo. Where is he? Her heart raced as she took a deep breath, trying to focus. She could hear the muffled sounds of the vanguard soldiers moving around the ship, their voices shouting orders, their boots clanking against the metal floor. It was only a matter of time before they found her, but she couldn't run. Not when Leo was still out there, holding them off. Zareth's mind snapped into focus as she made a decision. She wouldn't escape on her own. She wouldn't leave Leo behind. If she was going to survive, they were going to have to do it together. Her eyes flicked to the emergency exit on the far side of the room. The escape pods were within reach, but so were the soldiers. She couldn't afford to waste any more time. A sudden voice came over the intercom, breaking through the chaos. It was Leo. His voice was strained, filled with a mix of urgency and fear. "Zareth," he said, barely able to keep his voice steady. "I've managed to stall them for now, but it won't last. I need you to activate the escape pods. I'll hold them off, but you have to leave. Get out of here. It's the only way." Zareth froze. She wanted to scream, to argue, to refuse. But she knew he was right. He had already risked everything for her. Now it was her turn. With a deep, steadying breath, she forced herself to move. Her fingers flew over the control panel, and the escape pod doors hissed open. She glanced once more at the soldiers, who were closing in, their weapons aimed at her. They had no idea what was coming. Zirith bolted for the pod, her heart pounding in her chest. As she reached the pod bay, she saw Leo, his back pressed against a wall, his gun raised, his face covered in sweat and blood. He was fighting for his life, and for hers. She couldn't leave him. Just as the first Vanguard soldier raised his weapon to fire, Zirith rushed forward, slamming her shoulder into the soldier and knocking him off balance. The other soldiers turned, but it was too late. She pushed Leo into the escape pod, locking the door behind him. The countdown had already begun. "Let's go," she said, her voice trembling. "We're leaving." The pod blasted out into space just as the ship erupted behind them. The shockwave rattled their bones, but they were free. For now. Zirith looked at Leo, their eyes meeting. Both of them were covered in dirt, sweat, and blood. Both of them were bruised, broken, but they were alive. And as the debris from the ship slowly drifted behind them, Zirith knew one thing for sure. Their fight wasn't over. It had only just begun. The light, the cold vastness of space, stretched endlessly around them, an infinite sea of stars. Zirith stared out through the small viewport of the escape pod, her mind a swirl of thoughts, her heart still pounding from the chaos they had just escaped. The ship that had once been her prison, the warship of her enemies, was now a shattered wreck, lost to the dark depths of space. But she didn't feel relief. Not yet. She couldn't forget what she had witnessed, what she had been forced to leave behind. Leo had risked everything to keep her safe, to give her a chance to escape. But now, as they drifted in the silence of space, Zirith couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The seed was still out there. It was still a threat. The Vanguard hadn't stopped searching for it, and they wouldn't stop until they had it in their hands. And even if the seed was powerful enough to reshape the galaxy, it was too dangerous to fall into the wrong hands. If the Vanguard got their hands on it, they would destroy everything. Every last hope for peace would be gone. Zirith glanced over at Leo, who was sitting in the corner of the pod, silently staring at the control panel. He had said nothing since they had launched. His face was tired, lined with the weight of the decisions he had made. His eyes, once full of fire and determination, now looked hollow, like he had given everything he had, and yet it still wasn't enough. They were alive, but alive didn't mean they had won. Zirith swallowed hard. "Leo," she said softly, breaking the silence, her voice filled with uncertainty. "What do we do now?" "The seed, if the Vanguard catches up with us." Leo's voice was low and tired, but there was a calmness in it that surprised her. "I don't know," he admitted. "I wish I did. But we don't have all the answers. We just have to do what we can. Fight for what we believe in." His words were simple, but they carried weight. She could hear the raw emotion in his voice, the burden of knowing how far they had come and how much was still left to do. Zirith looked out the window again, watching the stars pass by. "I never thought I'd be the one to make the decision. I never thought I'd be the one to protect the seed, to carry the weight of my people's sacrifice. I thought that was something only the Zarathians could do. But now," she paused, trying to find the right words, "I'm the only one left." Leo's gaze softened, and he finally stood, walking over to her. He placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch gentle but firm. "You're not alone anymore, Zirith. You never were." Zirith looked up at him, her heart heavy with the pain of what she had lost. She had been alone for so long, so lost in the darkness of space. But Leo's presence, his unshakable belief in her, was a reminder that maybe she didn't have to carry everything by herself. For the first time since her world had been destroyed, Zirith felt a flicker of something deep inside her. Hope. You're right, she whispered, her voice barely audible. But what if it's too late? What if I'm not strong enough to stop them? Leo's eyes locked with hers, his expression steady, unwavering. You are stronger than you think, Zirith. We all are. The seed isn't just power, it's a choice. What you do with it, how you use it, that's what matters. And you'll decide. Not the Vanguard. Not anyone else. Zirith felt a surge of something she couldn't explain. It wasn't just hope. It was purpose. It was the knowledge that, even in the darkest of times, there was always a choice. She could choose to fight, to make her own future. She could choose to honor the sacrifices of her people, the legacy they had left behind. She was the last of the Zrathians, but she wasn't alone. And she wouldn't let their story end in darkness. Suddenly, the control panel beeped, cutting through the heavy silence of the pod. Zirith's heart skipped a beat as she saw the readout. A small, unmarked ship was approaching at high speed. It wasn't a Vanguard vessel. It was something else. Something unfamiliar. Her breath caught in her throat. Leo, there's someone coming. Are they friend or foe? Leo moved quickly, scanning the display. His face tightened as he read the incoming signals. I don't know. But if they're here to finish what the Vanguard started, we won't have much time to find out. The pod shook again, this time from a sudden jolt of acceleration. The unknown ship was pulling alongside them. A soft hum filled the pod as the intercom crackled to life. This is Captain Ilara of the Starborn Fleet, a voice announced. You've been marked as a priority target. Stand down, and we'll escort you to safety. Zirith's heart pounded. The Starborn Fleet, a name she had heard of in passing, a faction dedicated to restoring peace to the galaxy. But could they be trusted? Could she trust anyone after everything that had happened? She turned to Leo, searching his face for any hint of what to do next. He was quiet for a moment, his gaze thoughtful. Finally, he nodded. We don't have a choice. Let them in. Zirith hesitated for only a second before she activated the docking sequence. The airlock hissed open, and the Starborn ship glided in beside them. It wasn't just a ship, it was a fleet. Sleek, powerful, and unmistakably advanced. The emblem on its hull was a symbol of hope, a symbol of a galaxy that could still be saved. Zirith exhaled slowly, her mind racing. This could be their chance. A chance to finally make things right. As the pod docked, the door slid open, revealing a tall woman in a blue uniform, her eyes sharp and determined. Her presence was commanding, but there was something else, something in the way she looked at Zirith, a quiet understanding that made Zirith feel like she had found someone who truly saw her. I'm Captain Ilara, the woman said, her voice steady, full of authority. We've been tracking you for some time, and we know what's at stake. Zirith swallowed hard. The seed, the Vanguard, they'll stop at nothing to take it. We can't let them use it. Ilara nodded. And we won't. We've been fighting for peace, for balance. But it's not just about fighting the Vanguard. It's about the choices we make moving forward. The seed can either save or destroy this galaxy, and we need to make sure it's in the right hands. Zirith took a deep breath, her gaze meeting Leo's. This was the moment. The choice was hers. And for the first time, she was ready to make it.